How is this latest, I don't want to call it a flop, $40 million, but a little bit of a disappointment. What does this mean for the industry and Warner Brothers?
Well, I think that, look, we've had a very interesting year at the box office, maybe the most unusual we've ever seen. And with this Aquaman movie and some other superhero movies underperforming a bit, it really, I think, has the industry rethinking what is it that audiences want. And even though the box office is slower at this particular Christmas than it's been in the pre-pandemic era, where we would routinely see 150 million plus for the 4-day holiday weekend, we're going to be at around 96 million for the 3 days and probably 135 million for the 4 days, Friday through Monday. But there's an amazing array of films out there. You have Aquaman, as we've been talking about. Migration is out there. Anyone But You, Ferrari, The Color Purple, The Iron Claw. I mean, there's so many big movies that are opening right now. So in other words, to be a moviegoer right now is great, but the box office is down a bit. We're at about $8.7 billion year to date domestically, trying to get to $9 billion. We have a few days to go through the 31st. That's where Comscore will be calculating the full year box office. We're in the home stretch. Great time to be a moviegoer. A little bit tougher for the theaters right now. But I think January we'll see a lot of these movies that are opening now. We'll find out what their ultimate performance is, because it's a traffic jam out there with all these movies in this Christmas marketplace or holiday marketplace.
So how does the performance of some of the movies that we've been tracking over the course of this year influence what that slate looks like going into, maybe not next year, because many of those are already, fully edited. They've perhaps even thought about their press junkets already and whatnot, but maybe 2-3 years out from now?
Yeah, well, the strike impact was huge. And in fact, very famously, the latest Mission Impossible movie moved from the summer of 24 into 25. There was a lot of disruption to the production schedule. That'll have an impact down the road. I think that the bigger takeaway for me is that when the movies are out there, people want to go, but there are certain genres and films that haven't performed as well as expected, while also this past weekend, you had 2 Indian films and 2 Japanese films in the top 10. So I don't know if there's a zeitgeist shift or something like that, but some of the tried and true genres or brands that didn't do as well this year, I think that's a signal to the industry that people want something different, like Five Nights at Freddy's. That was something that opened to $80 million, but there have been other big franchise films that didn't open as big as expected. So I think the big takeaway, and to answer your question, yes, there will be an impact, certainly in 2025 with all the the impact of production delays and those types of things. But I think the bottom line is that people love going to the movie theater. They just need a really compelling reason to go, considering how many options they have for entertainment on their home screens.
Well, just thinking about some of those options, and you just kind of hit on this, there's been a shift away from some of the traditional money makers, these mega blockbuster hits that involve superhero characters. But might we be entering an age where the independent film sees a little bit of a resurgence? And I remember in the mid-'90s, there were a couple of movies that just kind of changed the game, and we were able to transition from those big movies, the headline movies of the '80s.
That's a great point. I think, a lot of people thought when the pandemic hit that independent films, smaller movies would go away, or that they would just go exclusively to streaming, because you need those big blockbusters to bring people into the movie theater. But right now we're seeing a real renaissance with the indie films. I mean, films like Priscilla that's out there, The Holdovers. There's a lot of great more character-driven films that I think audiences are gravitating toward. But again, those films collectively don't earn the kind of box office that can sustain the theatrical business. So you need that good mix of blockbusters and independent films to really sustain the business. But a movie like Ferrari kind of bridges that gap. It's Michael Mann, a fairly large budgeted movie, but it has that indie feel. So it's really interesting to see what's going on out there. But for me, to see that the Boy and the Heron, Godzilla -1, Salar Part 1 Ceasefire, which is an Indian film. And then, of course, all these international cinema films being in this top 10 is really interesting.
Yeah, over the weekend, I saw Anselm over at the IFC, loved it, about the artist Anselm Kiefer. But in general, hey, I'm rooting for the independents to come back here in the next year.
I think they are. I think they are big, and I think you made a great point about that.
All right. Thank you for joining us, Paul Dergarabedian, Comscore Senior Media Analyst.
Thank you.